Browns 13-6 winners over the Steelers here at Huntington Bank Field. Of course, it prevents the Steelers from clinching the AFC North in Cleveland. They will try to do it next week in a winner-take-all game against Baltimore. But let's start here, Mary Kay, because, of course, the big story coming into this game was Myles Garrett, his last chance to set the single-season sack record at home. He came up short, and the Steelers were not going to make it easy for Myles today.
No, they absolutely were not. I mean, Aaron Rodgers releases the ball so quickly as it is, but he was lightning quick today. I mean, in the nick of time, he was just flicking it away from Myles at times. He came close a few times, but there was no way they were letting him get this. The interesting thing about this is that after the game, Myles said, I think they were more worried about keeping me away from Aaron than getting the win. That's a huge, huge statement to make, right? And Mike Tomlin completely disagreed with that, said, we didn't do anything differently than we ever do against Myles. We always commit resources to him, and he didn't get the sack in the first game either. But disappointing all around for fans here, for Myles, and for the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, Ashley, that ball was coming out super quick. Aaron Rodgers always seemed to have a safety valve there, although it did feel before that one drive right around the 2-minute warning when fans were chanting Myles' name, like maybe that would be it, right? Like break the record, end the game all in one fell swoop. But that, of course, did not happen.
Yeah, that was quite the moment. It seemed like it was setting up for that sort of storybook finish. Mary Kay and I were talking about it as it was happening, and I thought for sure that Myles Garrett was going to be the one to seal the game, maybe with a strip sack even, but ultimately that honor went to Denzel Ward. He got targeted 3 straight times, did not allow a catch against Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and the game was over that way.
So Myles will try again next week against Cincinnati and Joe Burrow. Shedeur Sanders will get another start as well in that football game, Mary Kay, today. He got off to a really good start. He did end up throwing 2 interceptions in this football game, one where he got hit and the ball went off a player's helmet. Another one, just an ill-advised decision on a throw to Jerry Jeudy when he was backpedaling. But of course, we'll get to this draft position talk in a little bit. For a few reasons, maybe Shedeur Sanders continued making that case to continue to get more opportunities after next week.
You know, I think he did. I think he really did. Now, he did not take a giant leap towards the starting job this time, but he took steps forward. And I think that's the important part for him. That's what he's got to be doing. Even though he threw 2 interceptions, as you mentioned, one was fluky and weird. He had another one that was dropped, though, so that all goes into the hopper. But I still think that he did take some steps forward, and all you really have to do is look at those first 2 drives to see that he was very efficient. He had a nice mix of different kinds of passes, and he also lost his starting tight end and his go-to guy, Harold Fannin, early on in the game. After that 28-yard touchdown catch, he re-aggravated that groin, left the game, so he didn't have Q, he didn't have Harold Fannin, and he's kind of working with a very young and skeleton crew and trying to make the most of it.
Yeah, and Ashley, this has always sort of been the problem here. Were you ever going to get a definitive answer on a 5th-round pick when you consider that over the course of 7 games, he probably is going to be pretty up and down. It's not always just going to be an upward trajectory, but he does get one more shot after this week against the Bengals.
He does, in time to bring up the favorite Andrew Berry quote that development is not linear, right? So I think today you kind of saw a little bit more of that. The interception where he was backpedaling, I think that's the exact kind of play you don't want him to make. He fell into some of those bad habits from college where gets sort of panicky with the pressure, goes backwards instead of stepping into the pocket, and then makes a really ill-advised throw and a late throw across his body. But now, again, like we say with these mistakes every time with him, it's about learning, trying to avoid them in the future. And to Mary Kay's point about him losing Harold Fannin, I thought as the game went on, he did a nice job working with Jerry Jeudy. Those guys have struggled to really build their chemistry. Obviously, Jerry struggled all season, but this certainly felt like one of his better games to me.
Now, of course, I did mention, we'll talk a little bit about that draft position. The Browns officially cannot get the number 1 overall pick. They are still in play for the number 2 pick, but it would take some Week 18 upsets to get them there. As of right now, according to Tankathon, they are sitting at the 6th pick as of Sunday night. So, look, Mary Kay, anytime you go into a locker room, especially when you talk to veterans like Joel Bitonio and Shelby Harris, but even Alex Wright and Myles Garrett echoed this as well, these players did not care about where this football team ended up in draft order.
No, they don't care about it at all. But in the final analysis, this victory did knock them down 3 whole notches to number 6. And right now, there might only be 3 really good starting caliber quality quarterbacks coming out in this draft. And you wanted to be in that number 3 spot so that you could get one of those guys. Now everything's up in the air, and I think it all goes into the hopper too when you are evaluating whether or not you are sticking with Shedeur Sanders as your quarterback for 2026. If you can't get your hands on one of those guys, then it strengthens his case. So not only did he get a victory today, but he got a victory in another way by kind of knocking them down 3 notches and not taking them out of the quarterback draft market, but making it tougher.
Yeah, and it might just change their overall strategy, Ashley, depending on where this all ends up after next Sunday's games. Do they maybe go after a Mac Jones type as a veteran? Do they try and make a trade up to still get one of these quarterbacks who could come out in this draft? Or do they run it back with Shedeur and Deshaun Watson and maybe have their eyes towards 2027? I know Browns fans don't want to hear that about the quarterback position, but all of these things are in play if they don't end up with a top 2 or 3 pick.
They are in play. And look, the interesting thing is I keep thinking about this week, assuming it is the same regime, right? And we've talked about Andrew Berry and how I think we all feel like he's relatively safe, at least how they have been operating. And Andrew Berry, not like him to typically trade up in the draft. Ironically, he did trade up, but in the 5th round to get Shedeur Sanders. But that was a different case, right? Obviously, they had the number 2 overall pick last year. And what did they do? They maximized by trading down 3 spots, picking up another 1st rounder next year. They're always doing things like that. It, to me, is always the more likely move than making a big jump up in the 1st round because they're all about value with where they're picking.
I'll probably change my mind on this 5 or 6 times over the course of draft season. But sitting here right now, I don't mind the fact that the Browns won this football game. Sometimes winning, sometimes you just have to win games. And when you're playing the Steelers and prevent them from clinching at home, I don't know if that's a bad thing. Anyway, we'll talk about it a lot over the next few months, and you can find it all at cleveland.com/Browns.